Am I the a-hole for not letting my brother's girlfriend move in with me? I'm the middle child of 3 siblings. There's my sister, 19, female, who is blind, me, 22, male, and my brother, 25, male. My brother got arrested when he was 18 and tried to pin the blame on me. It was a huge mess and I decided to drop all contact with him. My sister and I are really close, and she's very self-sufficient. My parents still treat her like a child, but I told her that I would get a townhouse or condo and she could live with me when she wants. My brother is due to get released later this year, and I just started a great full-time career, and I just moved into a townhouse this past weekend. There's 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. My sister isn't ready to move in yet as she wants to finish up school. Now, my brother has a girlfriend that he's been seeing before he got arrested. They have a kid together as well. The girlfriend and kid do not spend any time with the family, and the only time girlfriend reaches out is for money. She reached out to me about having any space available, as their rent was increased and she was having trouble paying it on time. I told her that I did have a room open, but was saving it for my sister. She went berserk and claimed she had a right to the bedroom just as much as my sister did. I told her that she didn't, since I already gave my sister permission to move in. She called me Nahal and threw a few more insults at me. My parents reached out and told me to think about letting his girlfriend and kid move in. They also think having my sister live with me isn't a good idea, as she needs a ton of help. I told them that I wasn't changing my mind, and sister can decide for herself where she wants to go. Am I the a-hole for not letting my brother's girlfriend move in with me? Now for the top comments. She had a right to the bedroom. Can we say entitlement? Imagine the nightmare that would occur for you if you let her move in. You don't have a free room she has the right to. It's presumably taken in the near future. Not the a-hole. Don't let the brother and his girlfriend ever step foot in your home to live as a tenant. They will never leave. Not the a-hole. You did mess up when you said you had a room open. You didn't have a room open. You had a room for your sister. Sometimes small word choices matter a lot. All you had to say was, I don't have a room available. It still probably would have blown up, but maybe not as much. Yes, never explain yourself to entitled people. It just feeds the troll. Definitely not the a-hole. His girlfriend is not entitled to anything, especially not a room in your house. Even with him being your brother, the fact that he tried to pin his crime on you is enough reason. And that his girlfriend is insulting you for giving her a completely valid reason to not give her the room? Absolutely not. As you stated, your sister is self-sufficient, even with her disability. So moving in with you shouldn't be as much of an issue as your parents stated. I would never want someone who only comes to me for money and insults me for not getting their way live in my home. Next story. Am I the a-hole for setting unreasonable rules for when my son moved back in? My son, 23, male Chris, just graduated college. He used to live hours away from me and his mom and younger sister, but recently moved back in with us because he could no longer afford rent. He said it was temporary, but has been here for 4 months. But that's not what bothers me. It's the fact that he adds to our expenses and hasn't started working and doesn't help in any capacity. In other words, he's become a burden. I talked to my wife about how Chris has been lazy and mooching off of everyone lately, and suggested giving him the push he needed to start counting on himself as an adult. She gasped, saying how dare I imply would kick him out. That wasn't what I suggested. I sat with Chris and gave him a timeline as to when he's expected to either start working and help around the house or move out. Till then, I gave him rules that he needed to follow till further notice, and those rules were: A. No counting on us to do basic tasks, and start doing his own laundry and wash his own dishes. B. No complaining about what's for lunch/dinner, and accept and be grateful for the food he eats. C. No Wi-Fi more than 6 hours a day, just like his younger sister. He kept laughing as I read him the rules repeatedly, saying, BS man, are you serious? I said for real, and told him there was more. D. No luxuries like Netflix subscriptions and YouTube live streams, unless he somehow pays for it himself. This was it for Chris. He blew up complaining about how ridiculous and unfair my rules were, and reminded me he's not a child anymore. But I told him child or not, as long as he lives under my roof, then he's expected to follow the owner's rules. He got frustrated and yelled Mom to come to his rescue. He got her involved and asked her to talk some sense into me. My wife argued with me and I asked her if she was okay with Chris recklessly increasing our bills and spending so much of our money in lavish stuff while doing nothing in return. She blew up telling me to get rid of these unreasonable rules, and that I should be ashamed of myself for treating my own son as an unwanted guest. I refused and told her she was enabling his unacceptable behavior, and that Chris still has a chance to turn his situation around if he doesn't like it. Plus, what does this teach our daughter? That it's okay to be lazy and irresponsible adult? She said Chris came home with a degree, so damn right he's responsible but is struggling, and that I was making it worse for him. She finished by saying I shouldn't be surprised if he no longer speaks to me after he moves out eventually. Am I the a-hole? Did I go too far here? Important to mention that I'm the breadwinner of our entire household, but I don't mention this a lot since we're family and this is our money. Not a a-hole. I'm an adult. Don't treat me like a child. That being said, please buy all my food, clean up after me, and make me whatever food I want while I watch Netflix because I'm your special boy. I'm not a child. Then proceeds to go, Mommy, Daddy took away Netflix. OP, please show your son these comments and let him die of embarrassment. Everyone sucks here. Chris is lazy and entitled. If he needed to move back home, the least he could do was contribute to the expenses and have a timeline for moving out. You went overboard with these rules. No more than 6 hours a day Wi-Fi is just plain silly. You also implemented these rules without your wife being on board, and knowing she specifically wasn't on board. Your wife is enabling him. You also implemented these rules without your wife being on board and knowing she specifically wasn't on board. I'm usually against unilateral decisions in a family unit. However, when one parent is clearly enabling bad behavior/habits, their voice should be overruled. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for calling out my sister for taking and selling my sick husband's possessions in front of the entire family? My female 25 husband, male 30, was diagnosed with leukemia. He didn't start receiving treatment right after his diagnosis because of how weak his body was, and his health hasn't improved. It's not looking good so far. He keeps getting worse, and I'm constantly worrying about him. He's been in and out of the hospital lately, so my stepmom offered to help and sent my sister, 19, to our apartment to cook and clean. I'm away from home most of the time, and my sister would show up for hours every day to take care of the apartment. Recently, I noticed stuff going missing. Stuff that belonged to my husband specifically, like his wristwatch and some of his electronic devices, apart from his phone. I asked my sister about it, and she claimed she didn't see them. I kept noticing more of my husband's possessions disappear with time, and it drove me nuts as I kept questioning my memory since I lacked sleep. I decided to lock the bedroom as a solution, but I lost the key later. Another thing I noticed is my sister keep asking about my husband nonstop. Not about his health, but about what he has/doesn't have, which was weird of her. In the past couple of weeks, my husband was readmitted to the hospital and I was with him the entire time. I went home at 4 p.m. to get my clothes changed, and for some reason, I had strong feeling to check our indoor camera. I saw my sister walking in and out of our bedroom and had my husband's possessions in her hand. She took his wristwatches, his gaming device, and other possessions with monetary value. I was confused, but then figured she was taking his stuff and going home with it. I went to my dad's house and confronted her there by showing everyone the video, but she still denied after I asked if she was selling her sick brother-in-law's possessions. She kept denying, till she finally confessed, saying she needed money to pay off debts and rent, and thought since my husband was so sick, then those possessions weren't necessary. Everyone was shocked, including Dad. I yelled that she was taking advantage of my sick husband to sell his stuff and make money, completely dismissing the fact that if I happen to lose him, then those possessions become priceless to me. She started crying after I asked her in front of everyone if she was relying on him not returning home to notice the stuff that was missing, and called her gross and disgraceful for doing this to him while he's down and struggling. Everyone berated her and went off on her, but my stepmom heard about it later and called, and was angry, saying I should have taken my sister aside and not confront her and accuse her of being a thief in front of the whole family. I argued asking if she was okay with her taking and selling my husband's possessions, and she said no, but I went about this completely wrong. Now everyone shunned my sister after I publicly exposed her, knowing she had a reason to do what she did, which is rent, and she's a kid and made a mistake. Besides, she helped, so that should mean something to me. Did I go far? Not a day home. Call the cops and press charges for her theft. Good news is that rent is pretty cheap in jail. Not a day home. You called your sister out for literal theft. She needs to bring those items back immediately, or replacement value for any/all items, or you file a police report for robbery and let the courts sort it out. How dare she betray you and your family like that? I got some of this stuff back, but she's already sold the rest. I'm honestly so upset, but clearly I have no energy to fight with her or my stepmom. I'm ashamed and want to tell my husband. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister, her boyfriend, and her kids out of my house? I'll start by saying this. Ever since I was a kid, my sister has always been the favorite and had everything she wanted. She wants something, she gets it. I, on the other hand, had to work extremely hard to get my parents' attention. She never did anything, not even helped me clean when my parents would tell us to clean. I did so much house chores and never received any attention. Then years later, I turn 18 and I graduate and get a job. My mom, with 4 more siblings, says I can stay at home if I want, and I took her offer to save money that I pay her $200 a month for rent. My sister still got things handed to her. At the time, I didn't have a car and I just got my license, as my sister already had a permit of her own and always takes the shared minivan she used to go hang out with friends or go to parties. She would always ask me for extra money, and I'd give it to her as long as she paid me back. $1,500 later, she still has never paid me back. But somehow I was able to claim her as an independent for taxes and for a good refund from it and called it even. Then a few years later, I'm 21 and she's 18 and has a kid, and her boyfriend are living with us. And they sucked at paying rent that I ended up having my rent increased by my mom. 2 years later, I've had it and I was able to buy a house at 23. I worked hard to save and keep my credit good. So then I was 23 with my own home, my own car, and a good stable job. A few months later, she, then 21, asks to move in with me with her boyfriend, and her 2 kids. She says she and her boyfriend promises to pay rent, and for some reason I agreed because I felt guilty and I'm very close to her kids and I love them to death. Months pass by and almost every day her and her boyfriend is arguing. They don't clean after themselves. They're always taking up all of the parking, which causes me to park on the neighbor's parking, and I brought it to their attention 4 times. And their TV is always loud when I'm trying to sleep. Sister still doesn't have a job, and the boyfriend works a lot less because of COVID. I paid for all the utilities plus mortgage. My bank balance is running lower every month. So I've had it. And the next day, I told her and her boyfriend they have 1 month to leave. Luckily, right before they moved in, I made them sign a contract I made stating terms and agreements. I told them I've had enough, and if they don't leave, I will take legal action to have them forcibly removed. I feel horrible for their kids. Wanted to, but I can't go on having them ruin my days in my own home I worked so hard for. She says I'm screwed up for doing this to them. The boyfriend hasn't said anything about it, but I think he understands. Am I the a-hole for kicking her out with her kids? And she made it clear she doesn't want to live with our mom because our siblings are loud and messy. Not the a-hole. You've put up with this for months and now you're done. It was something worth trying, but not a lifetime commitment. You bought the house and you should be able to enjoy it. That's not happening since you were outnumbered 4-1. Stick to your 1 month and you gotta go. Expect some bargaining and some fury. But if you are firm, they will find another place and you can have your privacy back. Yeah, I just wanted to be a good brother, and I was hoping she would change her habits and better herself. But I guess I was wrong. But I will stand my ground. Thank you for your comment. Not stay home. Your sister doesn't get to move into your home and essentially make it unlivable for you. She defaulted on the rent while she stayed with your mom countless times, forcing you to foot the bill, and now she does so again. Honestly, you did the right thing by kicking them out. If you didn't take any action, it would have been you getting evicted as well. Not that your sister would ever have cared, honestly. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my sister for my father's funeral? My father passed away this past weekend. At the time it took for me to drive to his house, after receiving the news, was apparently enough time for my younger sister to commandeer control of the entire situation. She has the fanciest funeral home in the area come to pick up his body, despite the fact that Dad never would have wanted to be handled there. We are a working-class family. He expressly told me at one point that he wanted to be handled by the same home that handled my grandparents. When I spoke with my sister, she said that the only reason she chose that home was because I was unavailable and someone needed to make a decision quickly. Okay, fair point. I took a deep breath and just said we can discuss this in the morning. I called the funeral home and set up an appointment to discuss my father's arrangements. I then texted my sister the information and invited her to come with me to make the decisions together. It is also important to note that my sister has been in and out of jail since she was a teenager. I want her to be involved because I feel it would help her with her grief, but by no means should she be the responsible party. When I arrived to the funeral home, I am told that my sister had already met with the director and that all arrangements had been made. Okay, all they were waiting for was my signature as next of kin, but my sister had signed a contract and some excessive stuff. The kicker was she had paid for the funeral in full, which shocked the heck out of me because my sister is an ex-con addict who has never been able to hold down a job. So I finally get a hold of my sister. We meet up and talk about how she paid such a large sum at once. She said she maxed out all of her credit cards and borrowed the rest from a few other people that I would consider shady. She immediately asks when I'm going to pay my half. I tell her I had made plans to include her in the decision making, but she opted to do her own thing. Many of the services she agreed to were for her own closure, and not to honor our father's wishes. I had also spoken with the other funeral home, which gave us an estimate of the arrangements per my dad's request, and told her that she would have paid a third of the cost elsewhere. I tell her that I would pay that cost, but the remaining balance was on her, since this was all about her ego and ambition to control. She puts up one of the biggest fits of rage I have ever seen in my life, and demands that I pay her cash for what's owed. I told her that there is no way in hell that I'm going to give a junkie such a large sum of cash, but I would be happy to make a payment directly to the funeral home, and she could receive a refund from them. Otherwise, I'd be happy to see her in court. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay her? Not the a-hole. Don't give in, and I would cut off your sister. I was actually no contact for the past 10 years because of her problems and unwillingness to own up/change. We became very limited contact at Easter of this year, when my father ambushed me with a surprise visit from her as he wanted us to reconnect. Well, he's dead now, so go no contact again. It's on my agenda, trust me. Everyone sucks here. I get your point, but calling her a junkie was pretty crappy. She is a junkie, and a horrible person on top of it. Some people are just not worth the effort it takes to spit on them, and she sounds like one of them.